My name's David Fisher, owner of 57 Forward, and you're watching What's Your Hustle podcast.
What's your hustle? What do you do? Here to bring money and attention to you. A lot of people want to know, you got to give them the truth. Here to run the numbers up, we about to go through the roof. What's your hustle? What's your hustle? Here to talk about your grind, how you spend your time. We done brought you to the show, you got to speak what's on your mind. What's your hustle? What's your hustle? What's your hustle? What's your hustle? Yeah.
Welcome back to the What's Your Hustle podcast, and today we have a special guest. Today we have David Fisher from 574 Ward, and David is just an awesome guy. We met at an event out here in South Bend, Indiana called The Yard. And it's pretty much like an art event. Laura puts it together every year, and so that's where we met, and we just connected. And so I just had to have him on the podcast. And so before we get started though with the podcast, David, let everybody know where they can find you at.
You can find me at 57forward_LLC on Instagram. You can find me at 57forward on Facebook. I'm basically on every single platform, so Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. There's a blog out there that not a lot of people have seen, Discord. You can find me basically anywhere at 57forward.
And so for those who are not familiar with you, David, what is it that you do? Like if they wrote a Forbes article about you, like what would it say?
Man, business solutions more than anything, but heavy focus in marketing and media. So I just try to provide as much as possible to our small businesses in the area to be able to reach a very, very large world. 7 billion people. You have to just be able to relate to 1% and you're cool. So I do that for my clients.
And you do so much more than that. Like, you're the only guy I know who's heavily involved in NFTSs and cryptocurrency and metaverse. And like, man, you just know so much when it comes to that outside of even what you do, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. There's a lot of practice.
What is a NFT and metaverse and cryptocurrency? Like I'm not. It's all that stuff sounds so confusing.
So basically, the best place to start is the blockchain. The blockchain is basically the internet 2.0. So if you imagine back, like when the internet first came out, like we were Ask Jeeves, like we were using it for really basic stuff, but like we had no idea what it was capable of. We just knew that it was something different, it was something cool, and there was supposedly a bunch of information on it, but most of us weren't really playing with it like that. It wasn't as close as it is to us now. With the blockchain is just a version of the internet that's extremely secure as far as like transactions. And if you want to send information, you can also send it with a value to it, like a cryptocurrency. A lot of these cryptos have like functions, like things that they actually do to bring benefit to life or to bring benefit to certain things. Like I own a crypto that is meant to just be a coin that's meant for realty contracts, but like it's a contract with a value attached to it. So like if I were to create art, an NFT is a type of contract on the blockchain, and I can put a royalty tag to it that goes to my wallet every single time. So like I have an artist that I do this for, and I have a wallet that's set up for them. 10% royalty is just set up anytime it transacts. All we have to do is just get the momentum rolling. But I've seen artwork on the blockchain on all of these sites. It's not that great, like they're not artists, they're just people that are creatively copying, pasting. And you add in the function that if we attach a 3x4 foot canvas artwork to an NFT, well, now there's real value because the first person that buys it can actually purchase it and have the NFT.
So this is an actual real it's so confusing. So
it is.
How does one get? Well, first off, if you had to break that down to your little nephew who was in sixth grade, how would you explain that to him on the most basic level for him to understand it so he could get involved in it?
It's like a trading card that you can send to somebody on your phone.
Okay.
And when I send it to somebody, they can pay me for it. But if I create my own card and I start selling it to people, whatever. Every time someone else sells it, I get paid. Like, it would be a residual income. It's a structure for artists. It's something you can get residual income out of. For other people, it's different.
So NFTs was specifically created for artists, or it was made for so much more than that. That's just one example.
That's just one example, for sure. Trying to put it all into a box is difficult for me because, like, there's so many things moving at one time, especially with how all this adapts. I'm trying to think of. Give me a sec. I could think of a good way to put it because I mean, it's at the base of it. NFT is just non-fungible token. It's right, you have your fungible assets, but then like the non-fungible is like it doesn't actually exist anywhere except for on the internet. But we play a lot of video games, like Clash of Clans. You buy things from Clash of Clans, and you can also. When I worked in cell phones, I met somebody, and they paid their bills by reselling accounts like that. They would build up a Clash of Clans account. They would build up whatever's hot at that particular time, and then they would resell that account to someone else with no true actual intrinsic. Like, that really is like no true value, bro. Like, you could have this game, but like, what is outside of clout? You know.
So it's almost like when you would play. Some video games, like, I don't know, like Super Nintendo.
I sold you my memory card or something, you know, like,
okay.
But that in itself, like, as we see the progression of how marketing is changing, especially with social media, we align those two things together and we look at it like, yo, people are taking video game clips of them playing Call of Duty, doing 360 no scopes, like, you know, and monetizing that. And you can turn that into an NFT, and you can take that, the NBA Top Shots as an NFT. It's just moments that we are already watching, but now you own it. There's a level of ownership. And that ownership is a contract on the blockchain. And you cannot deny me of that ownership because it's attached to a wallet. And if you don't have the 12, like, it's attached to a wallet that only I have access to.
Why would somebody want to buy some of these NFT assets though? I could see if you bought like the first Michael Jordan's dunk, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
But why would somebody want to buy an NFT of like an average person? Like, if you just randomly creating this, like, what makes it valuable?
I always think of it like kind of like, remember in math and they show us the imaginary value. It's to me, most things that appear digitally are imaginary value because they don't have anything like intrinsically, you know. But for someone like, let's say my artist Alex Allen, who sells their artwork with it, you would get a physical artwork that is of actual like high value, like as far as her repertoire, as far as her people that she's worked with, like her clients, like she's worked with Pete Buttigieg, so like there's value that's being driven, but like, you know, just like anything else, it's imaginary value. For an individual person, it could be, I mean, what makes people go viral? You know, I look at, when I talk to artists and stuff like that, or musicians that I'm talking to about putting their music on the blockchain, I'll be like, remember like Kanye West and how he blew up on MySpace, bro? Like, he broke the internet. Nobody's really done that with the blockchain yet. Like, we haven't had our blockchain like rapper yet, you know, and there's room for that to happen. Like, I think that especially with the creative structure that we have at South Bend, like in the community, it's not unfeasible to make it happen here. And all you really have to do is just drive attention. Like, I believe heavily in attention arbitrage, like the resale of attention. If every person inside of South Bend were to just go follow one person, like, yo, it's a wrap. Like, a person's viral. Like, what do we do with the attention now? We resell it. We point it in directions. We move it over to this business. It's the same way that I could almost pay you a social currency. But
right.
I say that to get to the point, like, if I get enough attention to one of my artists' artwork on an NFT platform, we see how it rolls with their collections. Like, one collection goes, they're just waiting for the next one so that somebody can, you know, try and get in and get their early purchase, or their, you know, like the best resale possible. You know, like, people are trying to buy the number one because the number ones always go for the highest value, you know. But then if you go for a number 5, I mean, the value just kind of trickles down. It might not be the one that sells at a ridiculously high price, which I'm always interested in who the hell is buying those anyway at 100,000. Like, those, when NBA Top Shots had cards going for like $17,000, I was like, who's doing this? But at the end of the day, I think the issue a lot of people have right now is that it's more of a fad purchase. Like, people are buying cryptocurrency without actually researching cryptocurrencies. They're not looking into the audits, the white papers, these things that I mention these things to people and they'd be like, what? But like when you look at white papers, it's telling you what the structure of the business is. It's telling you what kind of code they're running to make sure that these disbursements are correct, because there's a bunch of different things called tokenomics that actual cryptocurrencies as a contract run that give you certain benefits, right? Certain benefits for holding. They're almost like little banks. Like they're trying to, in a sense, be a bank without being a decentralized bank. Like hold your money here because you're going to get burn benefits where we're going to pay you to keep holding type situation. And there's just all different types of like little contracts and values that are being driven on the blockchain. So just like how NFTs exist, cryptocurrencies exist. They're both in a sense a type of token. One has an image or a video or a song or whatever it may be attached to it. The other type has either like a currency or a backing, or like it's like I own a currency that whenever someone makes a purchase or has transactions, it goes to a wallet that helps to feed gorillas. Shiba Inu was really big because they had taken a wallet and just made it specifically for donating to India during COVID. So just kind of how we were talking about earlier about, like you put a nice spin on it, like you put that nice little bow on it, like we're taking women from the Philippines with such situation and we're paying them, but it's a nice spin for marketing, like it's like, ooh, like I hope you're a good person at the heart of it. Like I hope you did that with the full intent of actually helping people versus just using it as a marketing ploy, Mm-hmm. So that is the one thing, like nobody knows who anybody is on the internet, right? Like, so if you're not super in touch with these people creating cryptocurrencies, it's easy to get burnt. And same thing with NFTs, like people are very good at making websites now. So you can go to a website and it'll look legit, but if you don't know how deep you have to go or how far you have to go to figure out the legitimacy of something, it's really hard to like they're getting into verified checks now. Like I said, it's the rebirth of the internet. So as they kind of progress and they learn what we can do with the blockchain and NFTs and everything else, and they start to figure out the real world applications, that's where the metaverse gets involved. Because the metaverse, in a sense, already exists. Like, there's games called Decentraland, and I highly recommend to anybody to check out Decentraland. It's just a game on the blockchain. It's actually really buggy, like not easy. Like like that computer would probably work with it, but you need a strong enough computer to be able to support it. But it's basically just a big virtual game where I spent like a couple of hours just trying to unlock the world, and they called it a participatory token, something along those lines, where basically I got a token, and because I had completed such and such missions, I was able to have access to this like wizard type version of it was like this weird like dragon like type world in the game. But if you ever seen Ready Player One, that's kind of the structure. It's a landing page, and then everywhere else you go, everywhere else that you get to travel to. And realistically, if you already have the tokens to get there, well, cool. But 5 years from now, that token might be worth a lot more because something really cool is going on in this particular area. It's deep, dude. I'm sorry. I try to stay focused on the like one time period because it's easy to trickle into what can happen with cryptocurrency, because once you start to see like the inner workings of, all right, if I can buy this NFT, I've been on Decentraland and found a Black Panther NFT, and I was looking at it on some people were buying land. Let's start there.
Definitely,
bro.
I was definitely going.
The land it's crazy, and I wanted to know why. So like looking into Decentraland, I was walking around one day. There was like almost like a mall area, and there was this nice little piece of land. Some of them have puzzles. Half the puzzles don't even work, I don't think, because the game is
new, right?
Yeah, we have no idea what we're doing yet. But I go to somebody's house, and basically you can go up the like elevator, and there's like the only way to get out is you gotta like jump out the door. But like I'm walking around the crib, and I see a picture on the wall, and it's of the Black Panther. I was like, this is dope. This is an NFT. So I like try to click it, try to get information. Usually every other picture in there, like you could see the price, you could see the contract, you could try to make an offer or a bid to them. This one, he wasn't selling, and it was hidden in like a far corner of the house. I was like, this is really interesting to like find this, and that is an application of an NFT. The same way that you see people trying to make the VR. Like my next big thing with NFTs is trying to figure out the 3D modeling, because then it's a shoe, but there's real shoe. But there's real shoes. You can buy them.
We went from so you own property. This is a house that somebody owns in a virtual reality world. that's not real. Like you can't see it. It's in the game, but they
Yep.
own land. Like this person may not own land in reality, in the real world, but they potentially own this house in the game, and it's real property value. Like you could buy
There's real property
sell
value
it.
with no real property. Like outside of just the contract space. Like there's let's say that if you were to, it's almost like if you had a space and you were just like, yo, like it's commercial real estate, bro. Like you take a big space, you say, all right, you want how much? 400 feet? All right, cool. I'm gonna give you that 400 feet. And that's another portion of NFTs that like people are like, in a sense, I don't even know if that's truly an NFT. It's just property. But like, man, like you think about that.
Why would somebody want to buy that though? Like, just why would you want to buy property in a fake world? It's not real. But
It's almost like you could almost argue the same concept of, I mean, do you really want a mall location now? Like at this point, when everything's going pretty digital for the most part, like when Amazon's advancing quicker with 5G around the corner and like drones getting better every single day, is it really like working in what is it, not realty, but what's that called, retail, working in retail? Like, are those positions and those jobs as valuable as they were like 5 years ago when I worked in them?
oh, I'm a say like I'd be scared. Like if I wasn't an entrepreneur, I would be scared right now because technology is taking over. Like you say with the drones and the robots. I saw on Instagram literally it was a shopping cart, but it was a robot and somebody was controlling it remotely from an office, from home. I don't know. And it's just this shopping cart just cruising through the city of New York City, full with groceries. Like you can't just run up and steal it like it's locked. But once the drone, I mean not drone, but once the robot shopping cart gets to the destination, they call the person, they come downstairs, the thing opens up, they pull the groceries out, they go upstairs, and then the robot goes about its business. Like, how many jobs did that just get rid of?
And I think that's the adaptation that it's interesting how like watching how everything's kind of gone down with people not going back to work and stuff like that. And it's almost like, it's like one of those budge situations, you know, where like I look at like the Great Depression or anything else, like, you know, like historically we look back to like just how economics has panned out. And this one time we were all just like, no, the internet exists, yo. Like I'll sell meals, you know what I'm saying? I'll sell meals every single day that I'm already cooking anyway and just turn a profit. You know, like anything is truly possible because the economics is shifting a little bit. And I was just reading an article where they were saying like, oh, it's gonna be an economic shift. Like people have been trying to speculate on the inevitable like crash and how things look very similar to the Great Depression as far as, you know, like the US 30 like consolidated for the first time in forever. You know, like there's things that have happened very recently that don't happen with the currencies and everything else. So I'm interested to see what actually ends up happening because there's so much in the air. But with the things that we have with like cryptocurrencies and automation and everything else, like what world is going to appear from this? You know, like because it could be completely different. We've already been so engaged with the internet. It could just be that jump over the ledge where, you know, like it's, hey, dog, like everything we do is on the internet. Like, which I'm not opposed to. It's just I look at it from the perspective of ramifications, right? Like we saw that COVID kind of caused a spike in anxiety and all of these other things. Like, so I look at it from the perspective of people. I look at it from the perspective if there has to be a crash, what are we doing as a community to empower ourselves, right? What are we doing to have our own, in a sense, an economy that's going to be able to keep sustainable, where we're working between business to business, and instead of maybe buying big, we buy from the person that's just selling food from their crib, you know, because realistically it's still food, you know, like it still operates. It's in a sense allowing us to still drive value and hopefully create products, because with social media, like if we all just point all of our attention at one person at one time, that person's, hey, you got the juice now, like do what you will with it. And I think it's one of the most interesting things, because that the ability to just take attention and drive it towards something, 100,000 followers on Instagram will go a long way as far as like building a platform for someone to drive that business that's going to pay back to the rest of the businesses. We have to create an ecosystem within all of our businesses. So I'm very big on like bringing people together. Like growing up, like my favorite holiday was Martin Luther King Day because I'm mixed and I'm just like, oh, I am the dream. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I was always super adamant about that, but it caused me to in college like start to study it more because I went to school for communications and like marketing and psychology. And like, yo, like you get to understand like how people like him and Nelson Mandela and all these very powerful leaders like start to operate with people, you know, and what they were focused on. You start to get a concept for like the philosophical like, yo, what should we do? Like, what is the right thing to do given these situations? It's like, just keep focusing on the right thing. Like, keep focusing on like, every time that I see people moving in one direction, I always look at like, how are people going to take advantage of this? I'll be like, let me just stay, like, let me move the other direction. Let's start looking at this particular perspective. And I think that's kind of led me into thinking this particular way where it's like, man, like everything that's going on right now, we have a supreme opportunity to win and position ourselves back how it used to be. Like Studebaker, we used to be huge. Like our factory situation used to be dynamic. Like we used to have so many crazy opportunities, and then we slowly see it start to pull away, and that opportunity went away. And it's like, man, we got to bring that back because that's not how it actually was. You know, like it just kind of happened over time, and we see a lot of our friends and stuff that leave South Bend because there's not opportunity here. Like we lose opportunity because of really random small things. So I'm trying to really focus on how to bring that back. Like, and NFTs might be a way. Next year, if it's not NFTs, then I'll go figure something else out. But realistically, as long as we can keep this money moving in circles and keep it working in the right direction, like there's no reason that I'm very convinced that Hollywood doesn't have to exist in just Hollywood. Like that could happen in South Bend. Like, you know that you have the skill set to be able to do it. Like, you know that we've been around people that have the skill set to do it. Like, more than marketing and everything. The craziest thing to me is that everything that people think that I'm good at, I'm actually just practicing enough. Like, more than anything, I'm a writer. Like, bro, writing was always like my big thing in college. Like, writing papers, like, when it came to writing, I would only get A's. I would write papers for other people, and it'd be like a 3-page paper. Like, I'd do it in 30 minutes, and bro, every time A's. Like, I would write poetry for teachers, for other teachers and stuff. And bro, the thing, I would get so bad because like the teachers would be like, "This was crazy." Like, they would tell them like wild things about like what I wrote for them, but I can't own it. Like, it's always been like that, where I'd just be like, "Damn, like, man, I really should have just told, like, I should just take that class just so I can just," you know what I'm saying? Like,
so you real big on ownership there.
Ownership, not so. I mean, I feel like
intellectual property.
I think that blockchain provides an opportunity to give more ownership to things like that. Like, I think a lot about like ghostwriters, you know, like ghostwriters are a very common thing, especially within the industry. Like, if you really think about it, like a rapper's just in a sense a producer or somebody that's produced by someone, but like you put in small things here. It's not your beat that you made, it's somebody else's beat, and you bring all of these things together to be able to make something creatively like amazing. But the same thing for an actor. An actor's not writing all of this, they're just portraying all of these things. So I think that a portion of the ownership is cool. I personally am not big on ownership. Like, I like to get my flowers, you know, but like at the end of the day, if you focus on that too much, then you're focusing on something that realistically isn't going to help you anyway. So like blockchain kind of plays into that, where it's like, man, like we're able to have a little bit different of an ownership where you can always see the original wallet that it comes from. But at the end of the day, like for me, like I could care less. Like, you know, like it's never about me. Like it's like I try not to make it about me. And that's probably one of my biggest faults as far as like being a business owner is like, I put ideas out there for people and I'll just give it to them. Like I for real will send somebody a really long message about something. And I'll be like, it's really in a sense me saying like, I don't have time for this. Like, go ahead and take it. But then I'll see them actually take it and they'll like never give flowers. So I'll be like, oh shit, that was my idea. Like, so like I have to stay, you know, like to be willing to do the right thing and to openly just give information and give away free game to people. You have to also be willing for that to be, you know, owned by them. Like, it's theirs. Once you put it in the world, like you put that in content, shit, it's theirs. It's anybody's that wants to adapt it.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, I mean, I just be careful with when people contact me and ask certain questions, 'cause I mean, just from experience, people just want to pick your brain, but then not want to compensate you. And it's not necessarily about the money; it's just the fact that it's your time, it's your expertise, And if you want to know that information, you have to. I don't want to say pay for it, but you should just pay for it. The individual should be compensated, for that, because without you, then they wouldn't even have the idea. They wouldn't even be as close to what they're trying to get to. Without you. So it's more than fair. We don't walk into the Gucci and be like, you think I could wear this outfit,
right?
And then I'll bring it back
on an honor system, right?
Yeah, without the money.
That's the balance, though. I think that's why the blockchain can make a huge difference for a lot of these things. For a lot of people like us, where like you might have a consult with somebody, or like there's just it's going to be more transactions. There's going to be more like it's going to be a different. To me, it's almost in a sense a new version of consumerism.
So you said it benefit more people like us. So like in regards to like consulting or whatnot. So like, what would be the difference than somebody paying me in blockchain or something versus if they just paid me, by Cash App me or PayPaling me, for instance, for my service or my time. Like,
so as far as consultation, I don't see anything like in the forefront of my head like that's like true like a true like tie to a contract. I see it more from like the perspective if we were to create like a Zoom or anything like that, or like anytime that you do pre-recorded content and you're able to reshare that, well, you can lock that so that it's not able to be reshared with other people, and the only way they'd be able to do it is if they were literally with them. So like locking it in the sense of like being able to download anything like that. As far as like just contracts, man, yeah, I don't know. That's one that I'd have to like think about. And like I'll message you like a week from now and be like, this is how it works. Mm-hmm. But like it's so new still that even just figuring out, but there's more ownership. And I think that's the portion that is going to drive a lot of really enticing things out of people and what we're able to do, because we're just figuring out different ways like to do contracts. Like if I had somebody I was renting from and I decided to put a contract on my rent, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like you could have money as an artist that funnels to this particular contract or this particular like wallet associated with the contract so that it flows. Like it's almost like automation of money, how I would kind of look at it. It's like automating when something moves from one place to another, you get paid and you really don't have to do anything. I don't have to follow up. I don't have to have an assistant message somebody back, any of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty eclectic. Yeah, man.
So, what made you want to become an entrepreneur?
So I got really tired of, I would always listen to like Gary Vee, and like working in cell phones, it was a really good start for me being able to understand like the value of an individual as far as like gross profit per hour, managing stores. I was a district manager with Sprint, so like you start to use those analytics and you run those analytics, you see how the numbers line up with actions. I was able to put marketing, psychology, and communications all together, and I was going to school while doing this. So me and one of my good friends, Earl, Earl Wigfall, I call him like my brother in development, because he was there when him and I needed to meet somewhere in the middle. Like we needed each other to meet somewhere in the middle to figure out what we each needed to be successful, and we were able to grow through that together and eventually build something. But like, man, like you build something for somebody else. Like I think one year I sold it was like 100 and almost like 200K worth of profit. I think it was like 170, 160 somewhere in there for that company. But like what you get paid out is like fractions. Right. So understanding that, we started looking at different network marketing companies, and like network marketing that was kind of the basis of me really understanding future applications of how marketing could work, like being paid off of social value in a sense. Like, oh, I recruit this person, I recruit that person, that's all good and well. The structure is ideal, but often if the company's not legit, if the people that are operating aren't legit, you're out the door just like the rest of them. So working through that, eventually we just realized, like, create your own game, create your own structure, create your own, have full ownership, take full ownership of what you're doing. And what that means is really like owning a business, figuring out how to operate that business, because there's truly different benefits of just being a business owner versus being an employee. we just haven't had the emphasis in our lives. Like people haven't taught us that, write-offs and everything, like how all of that actually works. And write-offs is like always the first one that like network marketers go to you with. They'll be like, oh, you can write off your business trips and all of this other stuff because you'll have it as a business. But realistically, there's so much more. Like there's so much more than those easy sales that they try to give us. Like there's so many things that you will learn about yourself. Even just get a business card. Shoot, I tell most people like how my business started was I was just convincing people. I was working with very low-end clients because I was convincing people that didn't have businesses to start businesses. And I was just like, yo, and then this is how we're gonna work through it. And they're like, I don't have money. And I was like, I know. Let's start working on that. So there is like that profile that I had to move away from, but like really how my business started was just me helping people out. Like I was just helping, like somebody needed a business plan. All right, cool. I know how to type up a business plan. Like somebody needed a marketing strategy. Somebody needed a website. Like I would just work on websites. I would work on whatever. I decided to start to monetize it, started finding different clients, started networking and doing more marketing, and just kind of isolated myself with 3 or 4 different clients that I really liked working with, that I was able to create for consistently, and just allowed that to grow, you know? So I went heavy for expansion, but ended up kind of downsizing, but that downsize allowed me to drive up the value of my business. So like, hopefully that kind of answered that question. I'm putting together a course for it, for just general everything, like for marketing, just trying to get the information that I have out, because there's so much. Like, bro, I'm like, I'm for, you know how like people say like the addiction to more, like they had like that J. Cole video where he's talking about the addiction to more. Like I'm for real addicted to like improvement. Like after a while it becomes like retaining information and stuff. Like I have a lot of emotional attachment to it, man. It's like made a huge difference in my life. Like learning that your emotions, when you just attach emotions to your learning and like how you feel, like that's like, you know, you ever have that moment where you just, I don't know, like you for real go in and like grind and like actually like succeed. And like that happened to me in cell phones, and I realized like, yo, like when you have emotions tied to something, the way you understand it is just dynamic, and the way you're able to review it, like the way you're able to go back in your head and like think to yourself, yo, like what did I do to get from here to here? Like it's a very intimate understanding, or very intimate knowledge, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I definitely like learning is one of my biggest things, man. Like, and I learn something new every single day. Like before, I was up at 6 this morning just studying film. I've been drowsy, and I've been just got the full-time filmmaker. Met like one of my friends that he ended up started video like a year or 2 ago.
Full-time filmmaker?
Full-time filmmaker.
What is that?
It's just a course, bro.
Okay.
E-learning, e-certificates, e-badges. That's the other thing too that the blockchain can provide for us in a sense, is if we're moving more information over here, digital badges like my SEO badge that I get from Google, things like that. Those are going to be very, very dynamic. They're going to be able to be a part of our profile. People will be able to see that you work in video or anything like that. I think it's going to be really interesting when we start getting people that want us to start editing their videos for like video games, because that's going to be like, bro, it'll be fun. Like it'll be fun for at least for me, maybe. I don't know about everybody else, but like, bro, like to get just little editing jobs, whatever. But as you're able to build that profile, like you're going to be able to attach a lot of information to yourself digitally. And as we see things start to automate, well, it's going to become about a lot more different things. Like 7 billion people in the world. Like there's a lot of opportunity for someone that has a skill set that benefits a lot of people to be able to succeed. And that's why I think learning and being able to build that, in a sense, build your portfolio as far as knowledge is huge, man. Like anything that you do, if you just dig deep enough into it, you can get a certificate for it. Like LinkedIn, man. Like LinkedIn has a Final Cut Pro test you can take, and it just shows as a badge for you. Like when people are looking for just people in general, like you can attach that badge.
So what badges should one get then? Like, especially if they're in like the video production field or content marketing kind of feel, like what we're in.
Yeah. The biggest place I would start with first is finding certificates. There's actually a website, and I can send it to you, that has free learning, but just like thousands of resources, Harvard classes that are free, things like that. But that's where you would find your digital certificates, right now people aren't really attaching them to a huge amount of things. It's more of just kind of a clout game. Like if you're able to put it on your resume, you can put it on your resume. But if you know where to put it, like if you know where to attach it, maybe to like a link tree or just even like a little about you section, wherever, like that's a really good place to start to just at least learn and find their certificates. And then Google has their certificates. Google's probably one of the best ones if you want to get into like websites or even just like base understanding of like SEO. That opened up my eyes to how a lot of the algorithms with social media work. And algorithms with social media are constantly changing. So that one's kind of a hard one to like stay like certified on. Like you might be able to get like a base level like certification. Honestly, it changes so much that most of the time I just get my information from the source, which is Instagram and TikTok, because they're making their content based off of how quickly it changes. And who's going to get more viral quicker is the person that's able to put out, oh, Instagram's changing their algorithm again. So that's usually where I go to learn. As far as certification on social media, like you could probably try like LinkedIn, stuff like that. Like all of these are gonna have different purposes though too. So like I don't look at LinkedIn the way I look at Google. Google, that certificate's probably good anyway. I could put that on any page as long as I have worked with Google. But as far as LinkedIn, like I'm a LinkedIn pro level or whatever, like medium level or whatever level ranking they give you. Like I have a certification on LinkedIn, like cool. It's not, I just feel like it doesn't have the same value if I'm certified in something like Google.
Right.
Google is, I mean, it's heavy. Like I said, it's real. Like,
is the certification with Google free, like to take the classes?
one of them is. One of them. Some of the classes you have to pay for. But like I said, that website that I'll give you, like that the certifications that should be on there, they have like free certifications and stuff like that you can take, and they have courses attached to them.
So is it worth it to like get these digital certifications, or is it better to just like go and take a course or go to college, for instance, like community college or something?
So for me, like I went to college, and the experience that I was able to get there was very dynamic for me, but I don't know if that always happens for every single person. So it's kind of a touch and go thing where it's like, man, it really depends on you. If there's a certain structure of learning that you need to have. For me, like going through college also empowered me to learn more. So like it was important for me, especially because like I had a teacher tell me I was stupid like when I was like 6. Or like so it's like said something that like really like hit me. So I was like, oh bro, I'm about to graduate. Like when I graduated, like I was out there talking crazy. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, oh, forget that teacher, bro. So like for me, like I needed that. Not everybody's going to need that. Some people are self-motivated enough to just open a book and start learning. Like if they want it bad enough and just get right into it. Some people might need if college isn't an option, the course might be a better fit for someone that just needs the structure of someone telling them, giving them assignments, whatever. Really kind of fits. It really kind of just depends on the person's ebb and flow for everything. But I think a lot of the certifications, like even if it was just to put on your resume, it's still a resume. Like if somebody were to bring up in a conversation like, oh, I need to work on my website, I can say, oh, I've worked with SEO. And SEO is enough. Just like our equipment. Man, like when you first started, what kind of camera did you have?
When I first started, I had a T3i.
Oh, yeah.
Canon T3i.
Man, I was just watching a video and they pulled a T3i on there. I said, why David? I said, this video old, bro. This video real old. But the difference between equipment, to me at least, it seems like a lot of is the difference in a lot of the value. And people don't even, a lot of it to other people, it's just imaginary value. Like what you learn, people can't see until you show them. I like this platform of like creating video and creating content because for me, you can see how difficult it is for me to get my ideas out correctly as far as like verbally, but writing I can do better, and visual I can show you. So like I can communicate through this a lot easier. So like communicating that you're good sometimes means that we have to up our equipment. Like, bro, I walked in here, I said, oh shit, this man going crazy. Like as soon as I walked into this room, but like the difference between the equipment is almost like it gives you that effect. So same thing with a badge or a certificate, man. Like you show up with 5 certificates, especially if they're easy to find, like if it's on like a social media page or whatever, but like it comes up in a conversation. Oh yeah, I work in SEO. That's enough to sway someone over the edge because they don't even know what that acronym means. Like search engine optimization. It's to me, it's almost the same concept of using big words. Like I get frustrated because I use big words pretty often. I get frustrated because people will like look at me and I know that they like don't understand what I'm saying, and they'll like, yeah, and then they'll like say what I said. I'll be like, that shit was redundant. But it's the ability to communicate effectively, efficiently, like your value. And for some people it's easy. For people like me, it's hard. Like, I don't want to put any bit of my value in front of anyone because I feel like it's a weird, like let it come out, let it appear naturally, organically. For other people, they'd be like, oh, I do this, I do that, like this is my business. Like, I always think it's interesting when I record panels, people get right into it and they just talk about themselves. And it happens almost every single time. I'll be like, bro, bring value, like come with value, teach something more than anything else, like, and then figure out how your story is incorporated in that. Maybe create some kind of emotional attachment to it where it makes sense to have, you know, a bit of your story in there to give it depth, but also to give it that emotional value. Like when my teacher told me that I was not like, that was like, it was something crazy. Like I wasn't going to be good at reading or something. Like, bro, I remember that to this day. I remember how to spell her name. Like, you know, like her name is like, it's a very Polish name too. Like it's got like some C's and some Z's in it, but like to this day, I remember it. And that's the first time that I realized like, oh, you could learn anything. Like if you really wanted to, you just have to have something that you're learning it for. It makes a huge, huge difference, man. Like it's the only way that I was able to scale up my business the way that it has, at least in the year, and there's so much more work to do.
That was key what you said. You know, you said that you can learn anything. You just have to have a reason why.
Yeah, no,
that's powerful right there.
Thanks.
Yeah, your why would keep you going. They say, you know, like when you're getting started with weight loss, for instance, you know, you got to have a reason why, you know.
Because it's so hard.
Yeah, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to have a reason why, because it's going to be those days like when it get rough, you know, like, but why, you know, and then that's what's going to keep you going. That, you know, because sometimes when you learning, you know, it gets frustrated, you know, but they say, you know, when you're learning and then you get frustrated or it gets hard, that's like when you know that you're making progress. It's kind of like when you're working out, you know, they say, okay, well, like when you work out, if you're going to work out for 2 hours, you don't feel nothing, you go home and you say, okay, I don't feel like I made no progress, but the reality you did. But you do it again and your body is sore, then you say, I made progress. Well, it's the same thing with learning. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's the so like if you ever like look at trading, like it's the support and the resistance. Like support, like I also teach trading and a few other things to people. That's why I'm gonna just create a course that just kind of covers everything, because like so much information I've gained. But support and resistance basically is like your support. We call it like the mama and the papa. The mama and the papa, in a sense. Like your support is like your family. Like that's the place where like, man, if something were to happen, you can bounce off this, right? You can, to break through this is actually, you know, it requires quite a bit of pressure to break through, but realistically your support is going to help you to bounce back up. Your resistance is at the top. When you get to the resistance, you get your resistance. But a lot of times, almost every single time in trading, when something hits resistance, it has to retest it. And then it might retest a few times and then another time, and that's consolidation. Like I said, US 30 was consolidating for the first time in years. That happened very recently. So like, and that's the difference between the breakthrough, right? You can bounce in between there. Sometimes you break below, sometimes you break above, but that's how the charts move every single time.
And we talking stocks for the people who's not familiar with with resistance.
I do foreign exchange, which is like, that's the one that most people usually stray away from just because of like volatility. But now people are trading in crypto, which is volatility, like extreme volatility. So like, I find often people will tell me, oh no, I would never do that, and then end up doing it. Like, give them like a month, a year, 2 years. You'll end up seeing them do it. Like,
what, man, you very smart when it comes down to the stocks and the cryptocurrency and
just practice
and so forth. You practice, huh?
Man, so I'm still stupid, bro. Like, I'm still that stupid. Like, when I say I was struggling to read, like I was struggling, bro. Like, it was gonna hold me back everything. And then after that, I was just pissed. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the only difference. Like, I'm not like, Leroy Cobb said that to me. He said so like, he told me I was smart. I was like, bro, no. Like, I'm actually really dumb, but I just am dumb enough to like keep going, you know? Like bro, it's very like all of this information. If there was an emotion attached to it, I'd be doing the same shit I was doing last year. Like, nothing would have changed. Sorry, my bad. I don't like compliments.
What was your did you have a mentor when it came down to getting into stocks, or like it was a book you read, was it YouTube? Like, how did you get involved in that?
So as far as mentorship, and I always think this is something that's a fundamental issue, especially in our community. We don't have a lot of like very solid mentors, you know, like we have mentors, and if you find yours, like, but you see a lot of entrepreneurs that will outsource their mentorship. As far as like just trading and technical analysis, Earl was the person that kind of led me in the direction of the multi-level marketing company that was teaching trading. And then from there, I started to kind of follow different sets and found my own like system that worked. I created a system for myself as far as like, oh, I learn from this person and I take trades this particular way that I'm comfortable with. So like, as far as just that goes, like I always recommend something to learn from. I didn't have like a true mentor. I had a business that was teaching me and they had the courses built out. So really more than anything, I paid for a course and I just used that course to help platform myself. But I recommend a structure like that, where if you wanted to learn trading, like trading is very difficult to learn by yourself. You could go just like video, like filming video, man. It would be so difficult to go all over the internet and try to find each piece that you need to put together an actual like production company, or just to be able to successfully film content the way you want to. That's why most people pay other people to do it for them. So for trading, like, man, like all the things that you would have to learn and the exact order that you probably want to learn it, because this is something, it's your money, bro. Like you put your money on the line, you put $500 in, you wake up the next day, the emotions are real bad. Like if you're down half of that or $100 or whatever, like people are emotional beings, and it's crazy because the technical analysis isn't the part that makes people successful traders and unsuccessful traders. It's them. It's your ability to take an L and already have that L calculated so that you know, like, all right, bro, I already knew I was going to risk $20 to gain potentially 60. And that's really like, if you can figure out one thing about trading, just like I told you, it's gonna do its thing. But if I think it's gonna break up, all right, cool. If I think it's gonna break below, well, I'm only risking what, $20, $30, whatever I'm comfortable with. I don't like that people call it, like, people would be like, oh, it's like gambling. I'd be like, bro, I'm be real. I don't know what's going to happen at the roulette table, but I do know that the market does what it does, and it does it very consistently. And if I'm not trading something that I'm winning with, well, I probably need to figure out something that's more of my style of trading. Like it's a more adaptation. It's like golf. Like it's like playing against yourself. If you're a good trader, like I wouldn't even say there's no such thing as a good trader, because like you have good days, you have bad days. But at the end of the day, like as long as you stick with it, most people fail out that first year. So I think like 70% of people fail out after that first year of trading, or maybe it was 2 years, somewhere in there. I think maybe 1 year though. Like,
I mean, it's a calculated risk, but I think if people falling out within the first couple of years, it's probably because of lack of training, then or knowledge or whatnot.
Structurally, I mean, if you can make it a year, taking L's, like, good for you. But there's also demo accounts. That's the other thing too. It's like, I highly recommend for your first like 6 months of trading or learning how to trade, like use your demo account, use it religiously. Like I know people that trade to this day that have been trading for years that use their demo accounts.
So you saying pretty much practice before you put up your real money. So yeah, so for y'all that didn't know that it's definitely apps out there and so forth, and then even on some of the actual trading platforms like Thinkorswim. Or is it Thinker, or is that the name of it that actually like? No, I think it is
Thinkorswim. I don't think I've seen that one.
But yeah, they give you play money and so forth. But yeah, basically it's really no excuse. To learning. Like if you want to get ahead in life, you know, it's just about learning. You know, and it's only 4 ways. And I said all the time on this podcast, I'm gonna keep saying it's only 4 ways to make it in this world. It's only 4 ways to make money. That's work a job, that's start a business, that's real estate, and that's stocks. And then we get into subcategories and all that, but the metaverses and the crypto and all that, that's still gonna fall under stocks. But
Man, it's gonna fall somewhere. It's crazy how it still follows that structure, because I've heard it broken that way. Is it the Matrix, or have you ever seen like there's the residual income, like working, it's like employment residual, like there's a breakdown for it where like what you just described, like it's almost exact.
I know. Basically, working the job is trading time for money. That's your first introduction.
Quadrants. That's what it was. Quadrants.
That's the first time I heard it explained like that.
Yeah. If you ever look up the quadrants of it, bro, what you're describing, it's funny because it doesn't matter. You still learn it. As long as you learn it, as long as you know it, doesn't matter how I say it. And I think that's one of the biggest like deterrents for a lot of minorities learning, like education wise, is like, bro, if you're going to pick at my grammar when what I was trying to say about hydrogen and oxygen and how it creates, H2O, like, if you go pick at that, like, how am I supposed to, the negative learning, like, is a thing. Like, I'm going to ignore what I was supposed to learn because all that you focused on was how I spoke. Like, there's little things like that I think that are difficult to overcome. But, yeah, dude, those quadrants, yeah, if you ever look those up, it's an interesting breakdown of how payment goes. And so how did you learn that?
I don't even really know. Probably heard it on the podcast. One of my mentors. I'm not, to be honest. I think I heard Grant Cardone say it. Now that I think about it, nice. I think the first time I heard was Grant Cardone mentioned. I don't know, probably on an Instagram video, and it just resonated. It just made so much sense. I was like, yeah, you actually right. Like that's really the only way, like, to make money. It could be a lot of little subcategories, but that's it. But then essentially, if we talking about like building wealth, you're not building wealth you can't build wealth on a job. I don't care if you work at Microsoft, upper level executive, it doesn't matter, because that company will never truly pay you your value. They'll pay you just enough to keep you coming back. You know what I'm saying? We think
that's the exact reason I had to break out of it, man. Like it's really it doesn't matter where you got it from, because realistically you learned it. Like, as long as you've got it, as long as you got it down, like that's super crazy. Because I always love when that happens. Like, I always love when I'll break away from who I listen to. Like, if I had to look at like a mentor for marketing, like reading Gary Vee's book was a very, very helpful and insightful, and kind of paying attention to his progression as far as everything he does. Like, I try to structure a lot of my stuff really just off of his business. I believe in the copy paste, in a sense of just like, man, just use their structure. If it works, it works. Just adapt yourself and apply yourself to it so that your business can grow in a way that's comfortable for you. Like,
I think that's anybody. Oh my God, I was reading this book. I know it's somewhere on this shelf. It's called like Genius something. But and it was talking about Bill Gates. And it was talking about Steve Jobs. It was talking about Bill Gates, and it was talking about Steve Jobs, and how they basically had got into this whole little feud about the whole computer situation. No doubt. Yeah, but
like Tupac and Biggie.
I didn't even know that there was a whole feud thing time that Bill Gates and Steve Jobs having this feud about the computer, but neither one of them created it. Yeah. Neither one of them had an original idea. Bill Gates did not have an original idea about the computer, nor did Steve Jobs have an original idea about the computer. So they essentially got that idea or that concept from X0. I may be saying it wrong. I'm not familiar. Yeah. It's like XEORX or something.
Yeah, it's like some old
thing.
Yeah.
But they both stole from them. Essentially, they both stole an idea from them, and then they both tweaked it. Dell did the same thing. I can name multiple companies that took the idea from
copy and pasted.
They just copied and pasted it.
Uber was not the first Uber, but that's, bro. Uber is one of the largest taxi companies in the world without owning a single taxi. Like, the structures, we see it especially in social media. Like, there was a social media documentary I watched where the guy they called it, I hate his name. I actually hate when they do this, but like it was like his name was like the Big Jew, and he would make fake news. Like, he made like, oh, there's gonna be kale shoes that were made from kale, and like drove value, imaginary value with just the attention. That was my first learning experience with attention arbitrage. It was really like watching how that went down because him and Paris Hilton made a clothing line for baby DJs. And those baby, like, it was just like my mom knows Diplo on t-shirts, but then you think about it, like, it's EDM music, so like the Binkies and all of the other stuff that already fits into that demographic was just driven even further. You attached a name, you attached another name with a pretty good profile as far as attention driving, and they drove value before they even sold it. You know, like Fire Festival existed exactly that way. Like, that's why people gave up so much money to someone that hadn't even created anything. The imaginary value that is one of the most interesting, but also dangerous things about our type of consumerism right now is that, like, we'll just buy something because other people are driving the value of it. Not because it's my friend's value, not because it's his t-shirt. Like Nipsey was trying to tell us, like, you know, wear your own clothes. Like, don't wear other people's clothes. Like, and if you have to, wear your friends' like business clothes. Support these particular people because the infrastructure that we actually do need is each other. Like, we need to be able to rely on each other to provide that barter, that trade, the economy that has to exist for us to make transactions with bigger economies, like to be able to work in the macro, but we have to work micro first.
So what do we have to do to put ourselves in a position where people, you know, will support our brand? Like you say, why go out and keep buying the Louis and the Gucci when, you know, your friend right out the street has a clothing line, you know? Like, what do we have to do to where we can support each other essentially, so we can create that ecosystem, so to speak?
I think that in my mind, how I view it is some form of transparency, some form of everyone kind of resettling and understanding and kind of getting away from the fake things, you know? Like, in a sense, like, I've never cared about personal belongings, you know, never really cared about like clothes, anything like that. Like, I bought Jordans one time, messed them up right away, and I was like, oh, I clearly cannot do this. So for me, like, I never truly understood it, but I've been watching for a very long time. And with social media and people, you know, out in Vegas, blah, 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 but they're not actually in Vegas type situations, like all of the clout chasing and the thirst trapping and all these things, like, in a sense, are very detrimental to the culture. And in order to get to where we would actually like to be and we have to be able to be very honest with each other. Like, we have to be very, very transparent with each other as far as, you know, what we're about. And I think that with a lot of my clients, I take time to make sure that we expose like who their personality is, because we need emotional attachment. We need to emotionally learn each other well enough to be able to start working together, because nobody trusts each other. Like, you know, like, I'm paranoid, and you can hear it in some of the things that I say, like, oh, this is how this can be taken to the dark side. We have to be able to eliminate that, and if we can get away from being paranoid about each other's intentions and having true value, that's the difference between our friends that we call family, you know? Like, those people are very valuable to us, and you don't second guess them. I need that for everyone, right? I need to be able to do that and drive value to things that I think truly deserve that value, like the entrepreneurs in South Bend. Like, that's one of my major focuses and why I use the camera so often, is because driving the value to them is the most important thing to me, because that's the infrastructure I want for my daughter to grow up in, you know? Like, I want her to have opportunities that aren't, you know, I don't want her to have to go out of city to go do stuff. I want to be able to know that the people that own the programs and run these programs are people that I have known for a very long time, and to be able to have that ownership of the situation where, you know, less excuses can exist when we own more things, when we have our own clothing, when we, you know, in Denver, there's a city where they don't allow fast food chains at all. Like, none of them. Very, very healthy city. Like, very, very wonderful city, because it's in in Colorado. But in Colorado, there is a city that, they own all of it. Like, it's all small business food restaurants.
That shows you the power of the community. Like, in your community, you can dictate what you want in there. Like, if you don't want a rent center in your community, you don't have to have a rent center in your community. If you tired of seeing liquor stores, you don't have to see a liquor store in your community.
No.
They only put in our community what we allow.
And with the profitability factor, like, you know, what's going to be able to, you see flip, and then eventually it's either you put a liquor store or, you know, like what works and what can stay. And like we see what happens kind of like by Notre Dame. That's always an interesting flip, that place right across from like the DQ and stuff that used to be Render, it used to be Main Street. That whole area, they get a lot of flips. You start to pay attention to like why are these businesses not successful every single time, so close to Notre Dame? What's happening? A lot of them struggle with the balance, like the balance of, all right, cool, we have Notre Dame and all of that, and that's good, and like, but it's not enough to live through the rest of the year, you know. So how do we incorporate South Bend, and how do we balance out? And it's like, why are we? To me, I look at it like, why are we balancing out these things? You know, like why do we have to look at it through the lens of such a careful like adjustment? It's, you know, like it's you. I saw it. What always bothers me is when I see them change certain rules, like the white shirts and chains. Like I always think that's like the white shirt one. I'm like, bro, what? Like I guess maybe it's like a classier vibe, whatever. The chains, like that's almost like racially, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, whoa, easy, bro. Like a chain. But then you start seeing them do like $20 cover charges. And it's like, bro, what do you think was going to happen? Like, you're just going to get a clientele that's hey, listen, I know a lot of people that pay that $20 cover charge for each one of their friends. You know what I'm saying? Like, so at the end of the day, I see what movements they're making, but I also see that they have no perspective for the other side. They have no perspective for our culture, for understanding like, yo, if you just took a second to just have a conversation with somebody about what would actually like work, or maybe even incorporate businesses from the West Side that can provide you with that perspective of what might work, or bring you those clientele that you want, right? Like, because realistically, like when you start driving up values of ticket sales, like at the door and stuff, like it's not the same. Now you're $20 to get into a place, like, I'm for real, it's not cool.
So I mean, so that makes me feel like, why is it important that we have like multiple streams of income? Because like, well, let me rephrase that. So that makes it seem like it's important that we should have multiple streams of income. Because like you say, if you had a restaurant over there by, you know, Notre Dame College, for instance, and when they get out of school and that's it, then it's like, where are we going to make money from? You know?
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what. It's definitely important.
And I work with a restaurant on exactly that. I mean, they're by themselves, like they stand strong. Like they actually have been they just won an award for one of the best restaurants, Yellow Cat Cafe. I grew up with the owner's son, as well as like, I mean, it was basically like my extra mom, my +1 mom. And they're amazing people, like super dope. Their price of food, super affordable. It's so much of them. Like their business is so much of their family, and it's so much of them. And it's like, man, they close at like 2:00 every single day, and we look at it from the perspective of like, man, what else could we do? Like, because they truly have that opportunity in that situation where it's like, man, what else do I want to do? Like, you know, as an entrepreneur, you always want that moment where you're like, man, I can't wait to make creative stuff. And it's like, man, when am I going to be able to create time to really expand and create that extra, in a sense, portfolio piece, that extra badge, that extra, you know what I'm saying, like that extra revenue source. And once you're able to start to figure out how to create your own ecosystem, a lot of the stuff that I do with businesses is about creating autonomy within their social media, within their website, making it so that you don't have to keep checking in on something. Because in the beginning, it's very hard. Like, it's very hard to have to always, you know, send out all of this stuff. I see why a lot of people throw money at problems. But realistically, if you approach it with the right eyes, like the ecosystem can exist where, you know, maybe the restaurant does slow down at this particular time, but how creative can you be to solve that problem? And then, all right, this would be a nice solve, but it costs money. How creative can I be about making it cost less? And I think that that's the perspective shift that a lot of businesses lack. It's like, how do I solve this issue while solving this issue? And when it comes to Notre Dame kids and students like that, they'll solve the issue, but they'll completely forget about other issues that will arise from that, you know, and vice versa. They'll solve this issue, but they won't keep perspective on both things. They won't multitask, like, you know, like, without trying to like be too directly like racially like biased or anything, but like it's just it's a perspective that people are taking into account. Like, to deny it would be apathy. To say that that's not what these business owners are facing is, you're damn near lying to yourself. Like, Brothers deals with it on the regular. Like, I've seen some crazy things between Notre Dame kids and the people that just live in South Bend, just minorities from just normal South Bend people, honestly. But like, they treat us, they call us townies, like whatever. Like, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but like going to Holy Cross, like it was a very intense thing to like be called a townie, because it's like, hey bro, you don't get to say words like like when you meet somebody and they call you a townie, you'd be like, bro, what? Like, I don't know. For me, like, anytime somebody calls you anything, right? Calls you anything outside of your own name, like, you take it the same way. You take it as if it's the one thing you really don't want them to be saying type. Right. Like, yeah, it's that view that they have of us is not super healthy. And I think that it could use some work. It could use some time, some effort. We have lots of businesses that are breaking boundaries, like T2 is a very good example of a company that's working very, very hard to bring some value, like to bring some very significant value to the city. And I think the more of those that we get, and I think that driving, just like I said, driving the attention to the people that we vet ourselves as entrepreneurs and as a community, and say like, oh, they're good enough people that I know that this money is not going to go to waste to help them. Like, that is going to be a very major focus for my business moving forward. Is like, man, who like, once you get the attention to point it, you know, like once you get that 100K followers or whatever you get, like, man, who do you point it at? Like, who do you send it to? Like, who do you hand it off to? Because it's just energy, right? It's just energy. It's just things that you can give to people to help them along their way. But who deserves it with that moral correctness, you know?
What would you say is the hardest part about being an entrepreneur?
The hardest part about being an entrepreneur, I think that it's a very, like, I don't want to say lonely, but like, there's a lot of solitude as far as like when it comes to work. And especially like, I enjoy making videos more now because it's a dual function. It's marketing, and it's marketing as well as content. Like, it's something physical. I can show people how I think. I can express myself through it. But like, what will really tear you apart is like, man, how much time I spend on websites that nobody ever sees unless I post it, you know, like, unless I like post it, but like, nobody's going to know. Like, they open that page, oh, that's a 574 website. Like, nobody's ever going to know that. So there's little things like that. Like, you know, like, people watch a 5-minute video. They don't know how long you might have spent on that. Like a 3-minute video, because most of the time we keep them probably pretty short. But like, the amount of time that you have to spend struggling through that. And I always think of the fake it till you make it is a really sad part of entrepreneurship, because I've heard people talk about it, and they'll be like, man, I was bagging up shipments that I wasn't actually selling just to put on social media. And I'll be like, but that's not wrong. But it, in a sense, is, if you were to do it with a true lie, like it's a weird place, you know, because everybody's at that point at some point. If you want to be a speaker, at some point you have to think to yourself, oh, I'm smart enough to be able to speak in front of people, to bring value to them. How egotistical is that, to think that you can stand in front of a room and be the most, in a sense, important person, the person that can bring some of the most value to the room. But in order to get there, you're going to have to stand out. You're going to have to speak. You're going to have to do those particular things to build the resume to do those particular things. And that's always the problem that people really start to pick at first. Oh, look at this dude. He wants to be the next, you know, Grant Cardone or whatever it may be. Like, bro, there's so many psychologically like painful things that you will go through as an entrepreneur, trying to figure out your own way and understand that, like, it's just about figuring out what makes you happy and just being able to do that. Luckily enough for me, like, making other people makes me happy. Like, it actually makes me like one of the most satisfying things. And I think it's really weird, like, to get so excited about other people's stuff as much as I do. And that was kind of my fix for it, was that how do I make it so that I don't hurt myself trying to fulfill other people's dreams and not really ever getting flowers and kind of just eating shit for a very, very long time to help other people so that I can have the opportunity to help people at the scale that I want to help them at. And like, you know, when I was looking at my business, when I was first trying to structure it out, I was like, okay, I'll be a speaker. And I was like, nah, being a speaker, I don't know about that. Maybe I'll be a writer. So I did a blog, you know, like I worked through different things and I found what was comfortable and I just allowed it to organically grow. And if you force things in your business, you'll feel it. It's very, very difficult to deal with that. Like, it's very difficult to feel out your way because you're being judged. You're putting it on social media, and that judgment can, I mean, shoot, a lot of people struggle with it. A lot of people won't even create because of it. That's the craziest thing. It's like, I've met people that they just won't create because of the concept of judgment. Not the judgment, but the concept of what would come from it. And that's sad because there's probably a million brilliant people in the world that'll never say a word. Like, an autistic person is a good example of what a genius person can be, but they just can't communicate it. Like, that's it. Like, this person might not be able to string together a sentence, but they can definitely like crunch some numbers for you in some of the fastest, like faster than a calculator, you know, like there's people that exist like that in the world. And I think that that's a good example of, you know, there is no smart, there is no dumb, there's just people that are adapting to the situations they're given in or they're in. And sometimes you can make it a little bit more comfortable for them. You can make it so that every entrepreneur understands, like, yo, you don't have to do this alone. Like, the interconnection is there. There's people there for you. Like, these people are not necessarily always going to hurt you. It's just you got to be good at vetting and making decisions quickly and stuff like that. But I think for entrepreneurs, like, that's the most difficult thing. It's just, man, how do you walk through this journey and how do you be something that you're not yet? Because everyone's going to tell you, like, oh, bro, oh, who you think you are? Like, that's the worst thing that people could do, but they always do it. They almost, not always, I don't like definitives, but they almost always will say things that are snide. Like, they'll say things that, whether or not they say in front of you, doesn't matter. Like, you're already doing it to yourself. It's bad enough that other people will do it. And you get that structure from them as well.
So you were in school, you were working at Sprint, and you was pretty much paying attention. And just like if anybody who has that entrepreneur spirit in them, you're going to start this ain't really adding up. Mm-hmm. So what were you going to school for at that time? Was it related to what you're doing right now, or was it something completely different?
Yeah, so once I picked my major, I was pretty hard on it. I was pretty aggressively convinced that I was going to graduate no matter what happened. So I forced myself through it in the 4 years. But I really went to school to play lacrosse. Like, I played it like my freshman year of high school, picked it up, ended up getting a scholarship by my senior year, and I wasn't going to do the other two sports that I played. I was like, man, forget this. Like, lacrosse is cool. I don't even know what I'm doing out here. So I go to college and play, and like, that was really the only reason I really wanted to go. Like, that's it, bro. If it wasn't for playing lacrosse, I probably would. Like, I truly just, that's all I really wanted to do once I got to college. I just needed something to like get me through it, you know, like that, something emotional to attach myself to, some kind of dream to keep following. So that was a large portion of it, was to play the athletics, to convince or to prove a teacher wrong, yes, but like, I knew deep down in my soul of souls that academics wouldn't do it for me. It wouldn't just be to be smart, like to improve my knowledge. It had to be something physical. So to me, sports.
So being an entrepreneur was never in your plan. It was just to be a lacrosse player.
Man, not even like honestly, I didn't even think that far ahead. Like, for me, like at the age of 18, all I cared about was lacrosse. Yeah, like that would be the sport. I knew that I mean, there's no money in playing pro lacrosse, so I knew I was gonna have to figure out the next level. But like, entrepreneurship, nah. I had no true intent until I started being around the right people. Until I started being around people that changed my mentality about things. Until I started being around people that really were like doing more than just talking about things, but positioning me in ways to succeed. I think that was what really kind of pushed me in that direction. Because I mean, prior to that, I was very much an idea person. I was, we should make a t-shirt company, or we should do this. Like, I didn't realize, but my friends had told me like, oh yeah, like I totally could have seen this coming. I was like, oh, for real? Because I didn't. Like I never intended to work on anything of my own business. I just was happy as was. Like I'm a very basic person as far as like what makes me happy, you know, is making other people happy. So shoot, working for somebody would be a very easy like life, you know, and just to kind of just do that and that's it. So once I really kind of got a grasp on, but yeah, once I got a taste of success with something else, that's what really kind of drove me in the different directions. Is I just have to be good at one thing to drive my effort and my ambition. So getting that lacrosse scholarship, like yeah, that was cool, but that was just a focus point. That was just a goal that accomplished another goal. And I've been saying this for years, like goals that accomplish other goals are always my thing. That's how things end up growing organically for me, is that I might set out to do this, but then let ADD take over and bro, I'm over here. Like I'm cool with moving in this direction as long as it's comfortable, as long as it makes sense, as long as it, you know, is a part of something that I want to do. And eventually, like I worked at U93 for a little bit as just like a marketing consultant when I left Sprint for a little while. I gained the information necessary to be able to you know, understand the market and understand certain things about that particular business set. But cell phones was really like, for a while, man, I thought I was just going to work in cell phones for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Whew, I'm glad I didn't do that. Like, that would have been bad. That would have been, I would never see my family. Like, they will stretch you thin, and they'll stretch you thin for a fraction of your value.
Yeah.
And they were squeezing that orange, man. They was getting it out of me. I was everywhere and nowhere all at once.
Now, how did you even get into the situation to be around other people that inspired you to want to be an entrepreneur? The reason why I ask that is because most people that's successful, you know, they like to be around like-minded individuals and so forth. So how was you able to get into a circle like that, so to speak?
So there's two different ways that it kind of happened. When you operate a certain way, like with a certain, we can say frequency, energy. I know a lot of people like to use that. I don't like to use something that's like too cliche, but like, I mean, I do believe heavily in like the frequency and like the physics of energy, you know? So like when you're around certain people and you start vibrating at a certain frequency, you'll make people uncomfortable. Earl taught me very young age, and like, very early on in my career, and my uncle used to teach me this, like when you're running in like cross country or anything else, like and you're racing against somebody, especially cross country, because that's what my family used to do. But like when somebody's running next to you, and like you don't, like if you want to win that race, like you sprint and see how long they keep up with you, and you sprint, and like eventually one of you will give up, and then after that happens, well, now mentally you're in their head, like you own the situation, you're able to proceed. I say that to say, like, Earl taught me how to smoke people out, and I was starting to make people very uncomfortable with, all I would talk about was business. All I would talk about was like improvement. Like I would only talk about, after a while it just became the only thing that I was really thinking about. I stopped listening to music. I started to really do things, and I realized like I started to embrace the loneliness of it, because my friends were not staying up with me till 3 a.m. to, you know, work on business stuff. And I'd damn near beg them, you know, like I would ask people on the regular, like, hey man, you want to help me with this? And they'd be like, yeah. And they would drop out, or, you know, like they want to talk about something else. Like it wasn't as fun. So I started to work these people out. But also like having people like Earl and working in the cell phone company, like, you're around people all day. You have to communicate with people, and conversations get boring. If you have the same conversation every single day, like it's not very enjoyable. Like I don't want to stop somebody, hey, what kind of shoes do you have? Then sell them a phone. So, all right, we start talking about business, or we start talking about what other people do, or, you know, we started to have more dynamic conversations with people inside of the kiosk and started networking from a kiosk. Like really we might be selling phones, but that was just a goal that accomplished another goal. My first client was Giovanna, and Giovanna, I met her through selling her a phone. And that's more often than not like how I was able to gain a lot of traction and anchor myself within the community, as far as like, oh man, I have enough people I can reach out to and communicate with and work with, and that already know me from another industry. It's the classic sales structure where it's like they buy from you once, you have a higher likelihood of them buying again, and like it's always the repeat customer is always the best one. So I was just finding repeat customers after a while. Like it was truly a goal that accomplished another goal and got me a lot further than I ever thought it would. As far as just surrounding myself with people and being able to vet quickly, being able to break down a conversation. Like one thing about working in that kiosk, it taught me, how they talked about like Jordan being able to play a game and it was like, oh no, they were just playing his game, but like he knew the game. Like it got to a point where having conversation, and I'm not as good as this anymore. And if it was cell phone related, I can do this, but not anything else. Like I have to practice it with anything else. But like just knowing where the conversation would go, like the conversation's going here next, so I'm going to need to tell them to do this. Like, but you would control it in an efficient way and really start to, figure out who's going to just kind of give you hodgepodge answers, who's gonna engage, who's really aware. Like you start to understand the whole situation so differently. And I think that communicating with people like that and meeting entrepreneurs through that particular facet, it makes it very easy to like run the numbers, to run a conversation and understand objectively right away what is I don't like saying this, but like what's the value? Like what's the value with this particular person? What's the value? Am I going to sell them something, or am I going to utilize them for networking, or is this just someone that I'm having a fun conversation with? Okay, fun conversation, I'm probably not going to spend a huge amount of time. It better be really fun. Or is it going to be network, or is it going to be, what I'm saying? Like it's almost compartmentalizing. And I think that helped out a lot too. It's like just being able to put things into categories like that.
So I'm almost saying sometimes you have to have a strategy when you're potentially talking to people like you say, am I going to try to sell them?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to try to network with them? Am I going to try to build a relationship with them?
Yeah.
Basically like qualifying the person.
Yeah.
Where to place them at almost.
And I think that's kind of like now at this point, it's just something that I do, and not intentionally because I think it's bad. Like I don't like to do that. It's almost like a pseudo judgment. Like you're over here just putting numbers and dollars over people's heads and stuff. It's like, no, not to that extent, but like I just need to know what kind of conversation we're having, like what kind of communication we're having. Because if I don't check myself, I'll get to scaring somebody away before we could have a real conversation about something, because I'll just go right into it. I'd be like, oh, you know about NFTs? Like, they'd be like, dog, chill. But yeah, the ability to manage a conversation is good, and it does well, especially if you have to lead like any kind of speaking events, anything like that. But I'm trying to think of what I was going to say. Speaking events. Yeah. But yeah, no, working in the kiosk was straight. Like it was probably one of the better things that I could have ever done coming out of college, being in college. Like if I ever have to talk to any college students, I would tell them to do exactly that, if not own a business. Like work while you're in school, because then you can get real-time application and learn it a lot more efficiently and apply. Because I was going to school for communications and psychology and marketing. So like communications was my major, and then I double minored in psych and marketing. But all of those fell into place so perfectly. Like I remember teachers always wanting to talk to me about my experiences in the workplace and use that as an analogy. And I was like, man, okay. So let's see, and I would just practice stuff. I would just practice every single day by working, but also learning at night. And it would seem like luck, or at least to me a lot of times. I think that it's the most ironic trajectory, because it's just like, it's weird. Like it's just, I fell into a bunch of situations where I just found people that were really, really adamant about being better. And I was like, oh, like this is convenient. Like, because I didn't know I wanted to be better. Like I didn't know that I wanted to improve, or that I would be this vicious about my own improvement. That's probably the people that I was able to surround myself with, as far as like the Sprint store and the kiosk. Like they made me very, very adamant about progression. and like the 360, especially like being able to learn, to grow, to adapt, and then to start to form teams and how to allow those teams to be able to grow, adapt, and do all those things, like to duplicate onto them that's what we're all looking for.
What's something that you wish you knew 5 or 10 years ago that could essentially help you, that you learned?
I would probably say, man, just start the business now, I guess. Like, really, that's the only, like, if I could go back and do like, buy the LLC then and just let yourself do what you would do. Because, like, what happened to me, like, as soon as I bought my LLC, I was like, oh, it's real now. Like, as soon as you just buy it, like, as soon as you just establish one thing, even if it's a business card, it starts the residual effects of it. It starts the process. Once you have the ownership, like that creates a lot of the drive. Once you make something physical, so like once you create this, everybody starts with an idea, but then once it just a little bit of realism will go a very long way. And I think that would have, if I had just started the LLC while I was in college, I think college is the perfect networking. Like your child, if they're going into college, probably should get an LLC, because they're going to be buying stuff anyway. So like there's a level of write-offs that you might be able to get, but also like they're networking. NCAA athletes can get paid now. Like I'm sure Reggie Bush is super, super mad right now, but like, man, like college kids can get paid. And for me as a business owner, the opportunities are a marketing and media business owner. Like the opportunities are phenomenal. There's so many athletes. It's the most interesting time in anyone's life is that college age group, that college experience, because you're becoming an adult, you're seeing what the world has to provide. We're able to see as adults, older adults, what's trending, what's coming up, what kids are doing through their social media. So we're keeping our pulse on the trigger as far as like what's cool, what's not. But also for these kids, like, man, it's really nothing to record really crazy things that happen at every college. Like Barstool owns owns a page with almost every single popular school now, and they're not creating that content. They outsourced it the same way that Uber outsourced it. So like it's the Tom Sawyer effect. Tom Sawyer would paint the fence, and he just acted like it was really cool and really fun, and then eventually somebody come up and be like, yo, can I paint that fence for you? Like Tom Sawyer is still getting paid. So I think social media provides a lot of very interesting aspects or interesting approaches and opportunities in our lives, for anybody that's in college, anything like that. Like take advantage of it, because it's a supreme opportunity to be able to have that in your life and to be able to have such a direct connection with every single person in the world.